excited to have you here today for the session, Resistance to Resilience, Leading People Through the Emotions of Change with Dave Collins. Now please join me in welcoming Dave for the session titled, Resistance to Resilience, Leading People Through the Emotions of Change.
Thank you for the warm introduction, and thanks to all of you for being here. I really appreciate the great attendance. I also want to thank the folks from the office for agreeing to open for today's session. Change management, they're such pros. Welcome to today's workshop. We've got emotions in the title. We're going to talk about feelings in this session. And to introduce myself, my name is Dave. I live up in the great north in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm the founder and CEO, shout out for the Bay Area, founder and CEO of Oak and Reads. It's an interactive training agency where we use the tools of improvisation and the tools of change management to help train leaders and managers to lead through the unknown. So, today's workshop is going to be very interactive. We've got about 200 people here. Hopefully you had a chance to introduce yourselves to some of the people next to you. The way this is set up is pretty simple. I'm going to talk for about 25 minutes. I'm going to teach a couple things. Then we're going to break out and have a quick conversation with the people at your table for about 10 minutes. And then we'll talk about how that went. How does that agenda sound? Pretty good. Okay. If you're not that into this agenda, I don't know what to tell you, because that's what we're doing for the next 55 minutes. So I appreciate everyone. This is a talking session. I'm a workshop facilitator. It's in my blood. I come from a teaching family, so it's not just about me, it's about you talking and digging into these topics. As I mentioned earlier, the name of my business is Oak and Reads. And I actually named my business this for two relevant reasons for why we're here in this room today. The first reason I named my consultancy Oak and Reads is because it's the name of an Aesop's fable that I found to be really compelling. Show of hands, who here is familiar with Aesop's fables? What's a famous Aesop's fable we all know? Shout it out. Tortoise and the hare, right? These ancient stories with a lesson or a moral to them. Show of hands, who here knows the Oak and the Reads? Yeah, nothing, right? It's a little bit of a lesser known Aesop's fable. It's like the Aesop's fables B-sides. Which brings me to the second reason I named my business Oak and Reads, and it's because the URL was available. So I bought it and did the 10,000 other things I had to do to get my business off the ground. The 30-second version of the Oak and the Reads goes like this. There was a big, tall oak tree standing by the side of the river. And the oak tree was talking to some reeds, these tall grasses. And the oak tree, like oak trees tend to have, had a bit of an attitude, a little bit of an ego. And the oak tree was saying, look at me, I'm fantastic. I've got these deep roots, this massive trunk, these big, beautiful branches, thousands of gorgeous, healthy leaves. And look at you. You're just flimsy grass. Every time there's a little breeze, you bend over and touch the ground. I can't imagine how you survived this long. You're weak. But then, overnight, things changed. A huge storm rolled in. Massive storm, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, hail, the works. And the storm was so strong, it actually ripped the oak tree out of the ground, snapped its trunk in half, and killed it instantly. But the reeds, on the other hand, survived. Every time there's a gust of wind, whoop, they blew over, and then in the morning, they popped right back up, just like nothing had happened. Like any good Aesop's fable, there's a moral, there's a lesson here. It's fairly obvious. It doesn't matter how big and strong you are. It doesn't matter how many years you've been in business, or how many graduate degrees, or how many letters after your name, or how many billions under management, or how many millions in revenue your company has. What matters in the face of change, what matters in the face of uncertainty, is flexibility. And this is a story that's been true for thousands of years. It's literally a thousands of years old story, and it's still true here, July 1st, 2025. So what I'd like to bring to my workshops on change is tools to help you be more like those reads. I want to give you some confidence to be flexible in the face of change. And so with that, I want to get right into today's content. The real skill I want to talk about today is using a tool called the change curve. And I would encourage you, because this is my third grade teacher mindset here, I want you to get a piece of paper out, if you can. And if you don't have a piece of paper, don't draw on the tablecloths. But there are some pens and paper at the water stations over there. You can draw on the back of someone's business card, whatever you want. This is the thing I'm going to teach you today. So I'd love it if you have something you can walk away with that you created. This is where I get to be my teacher. So the change curve really has an interesting background. The change curve comes from a woman named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Now, is anyone familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? Yeah, I hear some hands. I am so good at facilitating, I can hear hands. She did a lot of work on the science and psychology of grief and grieving. And so what's interesting about her research is she found that a lot of us probably are familiar with her work, maybe you don't know her name, but you know what she did, is she talked about these normal emotional stages that people tend to go through when grieving a loss. Things like bargaining, negotiation, anger, frustration. And these are emotions people go through when experiencing really any kind of loss. It could be the loss of a loved one, the loss of a family member, the loss of a beloved pet, or the loss of a job, the loss of status, the loss of physical or mental abilities. These are all grieving processes that we all go through, just as human beings. It's this natural thing. And what her research has allowed people to do is anticipate what emotions are coming next. That's the real big insight. Change management consultants, like me, have taken her work and applied it to change, because the real big insight, the overlap here, is that change is a grieving process. When you're asking people in your organization to do something differently, what you have to first do is give them space to grieve the old way of doing things. It can sound a little silly to say we have to grieve our old CRM or our old HRIS, but that's truly what's happening when people write you a 10-page email about why this is a terrible idea and why you're awful at your job, right? That's the emotions of grief coming through in not the most effective form, but that's what we're seeing. So what I want to do today is walk you through this curve and give you the tools to notice, okay, where is someone, what's happening, and what can I do to move them through to acceptance. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. This is where I want you to start drawing. This is all you got to draw today. One big curve and a little axis. So I want to introduce you to this, because this is what we're going to be practicing. This is what's called the change curve, or some people will call it the J curve. Similar idea. It's basically mapping someone's happiness over time when experiencing a change. The x-axis is really important. The x-axis is time. The most important thing to help someone process a change is to give them time to do it. It's not the number of emails you write. It's not how many pages on your FAQ page. It's not the number of times you have to go into their office and ask them to fill something out. It's simply time. Getting people time and giving some patience to let them process, to let it go. And then the vertical axis kind of depends on your change, but think higher is better, lower is worse. It could be motivation, it could be engagement. If it's a personal change, it could be happiness or satisfaction with life. So don't worry so much about the exact label, but just think we want to get people as high up on this as possible. Okay, so typically, when you hear about a change, the first thing you do is say, it's someone else's problem. That's not actually going to happen to me. That's the sales team's issue. Here at HR, we're fine. I'm not actually going to read this. I'm going to basically maybe hope this isn't real. I'll give an example. I'll give a personal example in front of 200 friends. Think back to the lovely time of March 2020. I was reading the paper. I was reading the news. I was hearing about this thing called COVID-19 happening somewhere else. And here I was thinking, that's not going to affect my business. Where I travel to conferences and speak in closed, windowless rooms of 200 people. Where I get on planes next to strangers and shake hands. That's not going to affect my business. And my business is literally teaching people about change. And here I am in denial mode on step one. That's not going to affect my ability to go to Houston and Chicago in March and April. I'm still going to be able to go to Baltimore and do that workshop I'm really excited about. Obviously, you know where the story goes. I did not go to Baltimore in April. But you think and you hear things like, oh, that's not going to affect me. That's someone else's problem. And this is normal, right? And I think the challenge in these early stages is you, as a leader, maybe someone who's been originating this change, you're much farther along this curve. So you're seeing people in denial while you're a lot farther along, and that gap can be really challenging to manage. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right, next, things get worse. Sorry. Things get a little more frustrating before they get better. Next, people start to really feel like, oh, this is actually happening. And they start to look for who to blame. Whose fault is this? That you're making me change this part of my job. What you're asking for won't work. There's no way I'm going to be able to replace my handwritten notes with this computer you've got from the office. I was talking to a group that had that first computer in the office change story. Felt very similar emotions. There's no way a computer can help me do my job. What? Or you can turn inwards. Did I mess up? Is this my fault? Am I being punished in some way? Why are they making me do this? Or I don't have the skills. This wasn't what I was hired for. I wasn't hired to figure out how to write AI prompts to help people with their one-on-ones. That's not my job. Why are you making me do this? This is ridiculous. And there's a lot of blocking. A lot of times that can look like ostriching. I'll put my head in the sand. I'm going to put up a big enough fight so no one comes within 10 feet of me. Maybe that'll work. Maybe I can just skip this whole thing. This is hard. This is challenging. But unfortunately, things tend to get a little bit worse before they get better. And I will say, I've seen some people taking photos. Happy to take photos of me. I'll also give you all the slides. So I forgot to mention that. QR code at the end can get these exact slides, but also if you want to post things, I have all sorts of social media you can post them. So, while I'm talking through these examples, I want you to be thinking in your head, what do each of these stages look like for me? What do I feel in this stage? Because I'm embarking on a fool's errand. I'm trying to label human emotions with 6 neat little dots on a diagram. That's not real. Your version of this might look different from the person next to you. As change leaders, which you will be by the end of this workshop, I want you to start to develop an eagle eye for placing people on this curve. That's the skill we're building today. Stage 2 is stressful, it's unpleasant, it's angry. People are coming into your office, they're banging down your door, they're telling you you're dumb, this was a bad idea, you didn't listen to me, they are mad, mad, mad. Stage 3, confusion and depression. What does this look like? People are in the middle of this change. They are exhausted. Instead of yelling at you, it's cameras off, microphones muted in your Teams meeting. It is a one-word reply on Slack 9 hours later. It is a text message, okay, period. Like a dagger to the heart, right? It's all that stuff. People start to go inward at this place when experiencing a change. You get quiet, you get sad, you get depressed. You start to ask yourself, am I gonna be here in 3 months? Is this the place for me? Am I gonna have to leave if this is really, really, really hard for me to get through this change? This moment is the hardest moment for someone to see how it gets better, or what the change vision is, the what's in it for me. Even though you're in the middle of it, it's actually, oddly enough, easier to understand the benefits in stage 1 than it is in stage 3, because we're just clouded in negative emotions at this point. I'll give an example. I'll go back to that COVID example, and then I'll give a personal example. August 2020, I'm in San Francisco, actually I'm in Oakland at that point. I wake up one day and the entire sky is orange because Northern California is on fire. I've been in my home office for 4 months, haven't met a client in person in weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm looking at my sales pipeline, I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm asking, is my in-person live training business going to survive? Am I gonna have to go back and find a job in my old consultancy? Am I gonna have to do something else? Will I have this job in 3 months? Some dark moments in the midst of that change, questioning, seeing how I could get through this. And the challenge is I didn't even really realize where I was headed at that point with my business. It was a very, very hard moment. Down there at the bottom, we often call the pit of despair. Overwrought word, but I like a little drama, so I'll stick with that. It's the lowest point emotionally, and there's this sense of nihilism. No one's listening to me. No one cares what I think. They don't care what's happening to me. No one pays attention to me, right? Maybe they're not acting like the 2-year-old I have at home, but they kind of are. Because this is just, we have these emotions. And so the question for you, and if we had more time, I haven't talked about this at the table, I might save this for later, is to reflect. How do you know when you are at the bottom? How do you know when the people sitting next to you or the teams you're leading through a change are at this bottom of the change curve? It's really, really important to be able to identify this. And this is what I want to offer to you. Don't make this curve a mystery. Don't make this a secret that only you and the executive team know about. One of the simplest ways to help people through the emotions of change is to make this super duper public. So what you can do is take these slides after today, bring them back home, walk your team through this in 10 minutes at your next team meeting. And you want to make this a common language so that you can ask people, hey, I'm noticing you're having a little bit of a hard time. Where on the curve are you? Help me understand how I can help you today. You can literally just ask people to put their initials on a curve as they walk into a team meeting, and you get a real good snapshot of how people are doing that day. And that will change how you work with them. Because in a moment, I'm going to give you the coaching strategies for how to deal with people when they're in each of these stages. But the first step is, you can just ask people, how are you today? Someone may be in 1, someone may be all the way over in 4, which I'm going to get to next. Okay. 4 is a really nice place to be. 4 is acceptance. Now, acceptance, as you can see on this curve, we're not even above where we started. It's kind of the tricky part about change. We're still kind of below where we even were with status quo before we kicked this thing into gear. But we're on an upward slope. And it's so critical to keep that momentum. Like I said earlier, your job is first identifying where people are. So the most important thing to listen for, to know if someone's made it out of 3 and into 4, is this. Their language changes. I'm going to repeat that again. You know someone has accepted the change when their language changes from past tense to present tense. They stop talking like, oh man, the old system was so good. Oh, the old org structure was good. Oh man, I missed my old desk by the window next to the coffee. Oh, that was so good. Why did they do this? To, okay, I guess this is happening, so I might as well get on board. Notice, that is not them throwing a parade for the change. That is not them typing into Slack with 19 emojis saying, this is so cool, and we checked out the dashboard on the new system. Like, they're not doing that yet. But this is a huge win. And this is a massive mistake that so many change leaders that I've worked with over the years make. They see people get to acceptance. They hear people walking into the room saying, all right, show me what to do. And then they get mad. They go, well, what took you so long? Where have you been? I've been talking about this for 6 weeks. Now you're logging into the system? Now I see you've updated your expense reports? Now you're doing it? And people go, well, what the hell? Right? I'm doing what you asked. It took me a while to get here. And now you're getting mad at me for not getting fast enough. Because remember, most leaders have a head start. Most leaders have a head start on this change curve, so they're all the way over in steps 5 and 6 as people are entering 1 and 2, so they get impatient. They go fast, 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 fast. And generally speaking, our CEOs, our senior VPs, they are not patient people. And they're on to the next thing, while others are still in the midst of processing. Really important to not get upset when people are getting to stage 4, because this is a huge win. So, you want to be delicate. You want to thank them. Because very easily what can happen is they tumble backwards. They go, well, I'm doing what you said, I'm trying this, and now you're upset because I'm not fast enough? Okay, I'm checking out. I'm back in stage 3. Or they get to 2, they go, what the heck? They're mad, right? And so tumbling backwards is totally normal. We don't just go nicely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we did, there would be no jobs for change management consultants like me. This would be easy, right? It's not, it's easy, it's a mess. This is a mess. Again, the self-reflection question for you. This is an opportunity. Talk to your friends at lunch. Think about this on the plane ride home or the drive home. What does it feel like when you reach acceptance? How do you know you've made it? When you wake up and you're essentially feeling like a different person. I'll give you my example. I'm gonna go back to that, my business shifting throughout 2020. I had to make a real conscious choice around that August date when I was really stuck in the bottom and sit down with myself as a solo business owner and accept the fact that I was not going to be in the room with another client for a year. I had to really accept that fact. I could not keep holding my breath and hoping, in 6 weeks we'll get back on it, I'll be on the road, it'll be great, we'll be in the rooms. That was not going to happen. I had to get to that point of acceptance to then realize what the opportunity was for training. And this is a really exciting shift when people go from 4 into 5. This is where problem solving happens. And I'm gonna add another dimension to this chart. The speed at which people go through here is often a factor of their change persona or their personality. The people who are those early adopters who love to, I always use this example, it's probably dated, right? They're in line at the Apple store to buy that first iPhone. Right? They're the ones camping out. And I'm thinking, why are you waiting in line? You can get it in 2 weeks. You can get it in 3 weeks. That's an early adopter. That is hardwired into that person. They gotta be first. They are watching Harry Potter at midnight. They're waiting in line for those books. This is my wife when it comes to Harry Potter. She got it, right? I'm not that guy. I will wait. That's a whole other workshop. But the people who get here first, I bet, because we're all friends here, I bet you can predict who those people are. I bet you already know, with about 80-90% confidence, who's gonna get here amongst your team. You kind of already know that. So get ready for it. Because these people are excited. These people are feeling empowered. They are taking ownership of this change. They're taking on the new responsibility without being asked. They're innovating, they're coming up with new solutions that you didn't even dream of with this process or with this tool or in this new role or with the theme of the conference, right? Thinking about AI, they're the ones sharing everyone. Oh, did you see I can do this? Did you see how I made this? Those people are gonna get here first and they're gonna talk and say, oh, I get it now. This is cool. This is a smart idea. We should have done this years ago. There you go. I tried this years ago. But I get how this new system will be productive. The important part is to spotlight these people. And I'm going to get to that in a moment, because they will drag the rest of the crew through with their excitement. The kind of getting out of their way is really important. And then the last step, when you reach the new normal, how do you know you're here? You hear people saying things like, I could never imagine going back to the old way of doing things. I couldn't ever imagine reviewing survey data without generative AI. I couldn't ever imagine taking notes in a meeting without that tool. I couldn't ever imagine commuting 2 hours in traffic every single day, 5 days a week, in person into the office. How did we do this without hybrid work before? Right? Maybe that's not the case exactly in your office, but these new normals do come. I'll go back to that earlier example, the group that fought the first personal computer in the office. I would imagine everyone in that office uses a computer every day. So these things do happen. Complete shifts happen. And your job as a change leader is super simple at this point. Debrief. Ask the people who are here. You don't have to ask everyone. Don't ask the people who are stuck in 3, because they're gonna probably say something very rude and unforgivable to you. If you ask them these questions, find the people who are here in the I couldn't ever imagine going back and ask them 2 questions. Really important. What's one thing you learned about yourself going through this change? And 2, so okay, that first question, what's one thing you learned about yourself going through this change? And 2, what can I do next time to help you move more quickly through this curve? What did you learn about yourself, and what can I do to help get you through this curve faster? Just those 2 questions give you the ability as a change leader to do 2 things. You swish the curve vertically the next time. You don't have them go as deep into that depression. You don't have them get as angry. And you squeeze it horizontally. It goes faster. Because you're giving them what they want, because they told you that's what they want the next time. And you're giving it to them at stage 1 for whatever change is coming next. You start to develop a little bit of a personalized playbook. And again, this stuff is gold, because once you get past this plateau, people forget. Just like, and this drives me up a wall, this is my own personal pet peeve that again, I'm sharing amongst 200 friends here. I'm getting so frustrated reading about return to office plans that clearly didn't look back on how we treated people when we sent them home in the first place. All those lessons learned were right there for the learning, and we are forgetting to learn those change management lessons. Again, you gotta ask people, what was it that got you through? They will surprise you with how precise and accurate they are. Because they're the experts on their own emotional journey. You're not, you're just asking questions. All right, with me so far, is this making sense? I'm seeing some heads nodding. I'm seeing some photos being taken. See those cameras. All right, here's what I want to do. We're good on time. So I'm going to quickly walk you through what do you do with people in each of these stages. Because then I'm going to give you a little moment to talk with the people at your table about your own change. This is a get your homework done in class type of talk. I really do want you walking out of here with some ideas about whatever change is happening and whatever change is coming, what you can do to meet people where they are. Right, so hopefully you walk out of here and you're emailing your CEO going, I've got the plan. Okay. In the beginning, what people want: clear, accurate information. Clear and accurate information. Here's what I see happening so many times, for decades. I've been doing change management for decades, but I read about it. So what happens is leaders go, oh, we gotta make sure we're controlling this info. We don't want to tell them too much. We don't want to go overboard. We need to kind of make sure that we're just telling them exactly what they need. The problem is, different types of change personas need different information to get buy-in. So if you're withholding stuff, it's just gonna slow the process down. You want every FAQ question written. You want the whole process out there. You want all of the people who they can contact ready to go from minute 1. Because you need to make sure your audience understands what's in it for me. Why do I win? Me, the individual contributor. Why do I win by buying into this change? And think selfishly on their behalf. How does this put more money in my pocket? How does this save me time? And not time so I can do 5 other projects, but time so I can go home on time, see my family? How does this get me more visibility with leadership? How does this make the clients I deal with every day happier? All of these things that are truly affecting me and my goals. Not if anyone's an Office Space fan like me. Not that big banner they had, right? is this good for the company? That is not a helpful change message. That is just boilerplate. You really got to hit people at the individual level, because we just talked for about 20 minutes about how people see this through the I lens. This is about me and how I'm feeling. So you convince me how this is good for me. Otherwise, I'm going to fight you every step of the way. It's just how we operate when under threat, right? Because we're truly grieving a loss here. We're thinking in terms of loss aversion in the early stages rather than potential gains. Many, many studies show about how humans are so much more loss averse. We're much more afraid of losing something than we are seeing the opportunity to get better. It's just how we're wired. So, to do this, explain why we're doing it. Share the research. Share the other options that were considered. Share all the feedback that hopefully you've collected up until this point as to why this will help us meet our goals. This is all really important stuff from day one. And then, here's the hard part. Ask for feedback. Asking for feedback is not going to be your favorite day at work. It's not going to be the one you think about at the end of the year. But you still got to do it. You got to stand up there and take the anger and frustration, or even potentially the confusion, and give them the right message then and there. Because here's what happens. If you don't answer their angry questions day one, they will create alternative stories and write their own story as to why this is happening. And I'm very confident, because I've heard all these whys, they are very bad and very inaccurate. So be honest with people from the moment it begins. Make sure the right story is planted, because that's the true story. Another really easy win on day one when announcing a change: do not, I repeat, do not put 90 minutes on everyone in the company's calendar and get them all in one big room just like this, or all in one massive Zoom meeting, and then announce this change with a big smile on your face. Here's what happens. You get 200 people all looking around, all seeing a bunch of other angry and frustrated faces, because that's the beginning of the change curve. You see torches and pitchforks and, knives out there waiting for you. It's this echo chamber of frustration. You don't have to do that. The simplest way to do this is have some messengers message this in small groups. Have the managers announce this to their teams in groups of 5 and 10. Have that happen in smaller rooms, so there's not this massive, oh my gosh, can you hear? Oh my gosh, I'm mad. Are you mad? I'm mad. You're mad, right? You don't have to do that. You get through this much more quickly when you break it out, and then bring people together later when the amplification effect is positive on the positive side of this graph. There's time for that, but not on day one. This may be a tough conversation with your CEO. They may like getting on stage and being the bearer of news. Coach them up a little differently. Have the CEO do a roadshow and visit those little groups. It's going to be much more effective. Allow for venting. This is what people need on the border of 2 and 3. When people are stuck, what ends up happening is they need emotional support. This is what people need when they're at the bottom. So again, asking people where they are on the curve is an incredibly useful tactic. Where are you today? I'm smack dab in stage 3. Okay, talk to me. Let it out. Explain what's frustrating. Practice your listening to reflect muscles. I'm speaking to a room of HR professionals. You know what I mean when I talk about listening to reflect rather than listening to solve. Let them share that they're frustrated, that this kind of sucks, that they don't want to do this work, that this is not something they signed up for. Share, reflect back to them, and just say, I hear you. This is hard. People aren't looking for a fix here because they already know what to do. They just need to complain a little bit. It doesn't have to be you, it can be their colleagues. Very often that this is taken care of by their partner at home, honestly. So some people who don't have that support network need it at work. Again, I'm speaking to a group that understands this at a bone deep level. You need to validate people, you need to reassure them it will get better. Trust me, just try step 1. and you're just trying to squeeze the moment there in stage 3. So like when I was stuck, we were all stuck at home during COVID, like we needed that sounding board, but there wasn't necessarily a fix. We just had to get to acceptance. We're not trying to solve it. We're trying to let people feel heard. And this can be really challenging for a lot of executives. Right? You probably already know the executive in your head. You're going, there's no way Dennis will do this. Just pick a name. That's my old landlord's name. Hopefully he's not watching. There's no way Dennis will do this. If your name is Dennis, I apologize. There's no way Dennis will do this. That's okay. Don't make Dennis do this. Maybe ask someone on Dennis's team to do this. Right? It doesn't have to be everyone at all levels doing this validating. Pick some people, especially the people who are going to get through this quicker. People who are already in stage 5 and 6, they are great sounding board people too. Right? Pick some people ahead of time for this. It doesn't have to be everyone. And then the last part is kind of the fun part. So this is really, honestly, if there was one phrase for when people get to acceptance and are starting to get excited, just get out of their way. Get out of the way. Put a spotlight on the people who are sharing exciting use cases. Give them time in your meeting. Do a little video, post it on the Slack. People are going to want to hear from their peers at this point, especially their peers who are early adopters, who've been waiting in line for that iPhone, and they come home and they say, look at this really cool iPhone. Look at all this cool stuff that it can do. Those are the people your people will listen to, not the executive team. They're tired of listening to at this point. So, the other thing you want to make sure of is don't slap people down as they're learning something new. Do not punish people who don't quite get the template report produced exactly perfectly, because they'll say, I'm learning, I'm trying something new, I'm doing the thing you're asking, and now you're getting upset because I wasn't perfect on day 1. So allow some of that learning from mistakes. Right? Make sure your executives know that as well. That's that testing and learning. So again, spotlights. Host a brainstorm, host a lunch and learn, host a show and tell. These are the moves that are really useful here when people are into acceptance and excited and energized. And it's also really, really important to remember this only happens for a short amount of time. People are only in stage 5 for a limited amount of time. That momentum and energy is finite. I liken it to that moment when you move. So has anyone moved homes recently or moved apartments? Yeah, just a couple hands. For those of you who have your hands down, that's probably nice. When you move to a new home, you get into the house or the apartment or the condo, and those next 1 to 2 weeks, you're deciding where everything goes. You're setting up the kitchen, you're hanging the posters, you're organizing where does the litter box go so it doesn't smell up the thing, and where am I going to put my desk, or how does the bed go? And it's kind of exciting, it's new. That's the feeling of stage 5. But then, after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, for me it's like 1.5 weeks, if it's still in a box at that point, it will be in a box for the next 5 years. That's the new normal. So take advantage of that upswing, that excitement, because eventually people will get tired. And once they get tired, that's when you ask them those 2 questions. What have you learned about yourself by going through this change? And what can we do next time to help you more effectively? That can be a casual, that can be a one-on-one, that can be just grabbing someone for 5 minutes and grabbing coffee. This does not have to be a big old survey. You just want that info. That's really important for the next time, because it is like a sine wave. There will be another change. There's going to be 10 more changes for you to see and measure, how's my curve looking? Are we shrinking it? Are we making it simpler? Are we making it faster? You can really start to measure that stuff. All right. We have 20 more minutes. I'm doing great on time, so I'm going to give myself a round of applause for getting through. That's the type of being on stage with a large microphone. I want to do a little exercise. I want to give you 10 minutes to chit-chat with intention with the people at your table. If you have a big table, i.e. more than 5 people, split into 2. If you're a small table, just chat with folks around you. groups of 3 to 4. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about your change. This is an exercise that I do all the time, and I think it's really helpful for grasping this curve. Think about your change that you brought in as your example. Where are you right now on this curve? What stage? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I want you to think about what's someone who's going through this change. Where are they? Maybe it could be your CEO. Maybe it could be one of your fellow HR members. Maybe it's your partner at home if it's a personal change. Why did you put them there? Why do you think they're in stage 3? Or why do you think they're in acceptance, stage 4? What are they demonstrating? And then the most important part, what can you do to help that person? We just talked about those 3 coaching strategies. Do they need clear, accurate information in the early stages? Do they just need someone to listen and validate their frustration? Or do they need someone to get out of the way and just let them cook? What is that person going to need based on those strategies and what you know about them? I want you to just share. You don't have to write anything down. Just share with your partners. Take a minute or 2 per person. And when we come back, I want to hear some reflections on how this exercise went. I'll come around and answer questions. Just put a hand up. I'll come find you. Otherwise, 10 minutes on the clock. Here's how we'll decide. The person who will talk first is the person who got the least amount of sleep last night. They go first. All right, 10 minutes on the clock. We'll talk about it.
schedule a time with me if you want to have a conversation one off, what's in your meeting bucket. And our team is very close, so we just have a relationship, right? Like, and it hasn't been I'm creating a job. Where am I going to be next year, right? And so yeah, so that's kind of curious to see where it's going to go. And we meet small groups usually. So I'll be meeting with some HR business partners, in the next couple of weeks. And I'm just curious as to if they move through that and what the thought is. And I hope it's like going to be good adjusting to this point. I said to my husband last night when we were talking about it, I said, I think I might just say, hey, how are you guys doing? Like, I want to be that person, right? You're like, I'm excited. Like, what are you guys thinking about it? Maybe we break the ice a little bit. That's my my direct manager, my question is called after me, she's like, we need to run. Like, I'm good. It just surprised me. And she's like, I know. And I'm like, yeah, I'm that person. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Nobody's taking that from me. But I think it's just a short business decision. So it's not specific. To be able to merge in one direction. Based on yourself.
If you're still talking, last reason. All right, welcome back. The only way I found to quiet 200 very smart people in 2 seconds. I want to hear how that went. So So first of all, turn to your partners, thank them for sharing. Hopefully, this was a validating experience. The people sitting at your table are going through the exact same thing as you. And so you've all gone through this little mini version of my day-long workshop on change. You can stay in touch, right? This is a conference of peers and experts, so I highly encourage you to exchange information. These are the people who know exactly what you're going through when it comes to change. So I want to hear how that went. So we have some microphones from our fantastic volunteers. I'd love to hear from a couple different tables, and I'll open up the conversation like this. What's clearer to you now, having thought about your change using this tool? What's clearer to you now about your change, having thought about it using this tool? What do we think? I'd love to hear from a couple folks. Yeah, just put your hand up. I see a hand back there, and then we'll come to you next. So if we get our second microphone running over there. And when you do it, stand up, just say who you are a little bit, and what's clearer to you now?
I didn't want to stand up. I think this was great. Thanks for at my table. I think we all were kind of like at the point of acceptance because we all have a lot of information about the change. I think what's clear is that the emotional labor that is going to be required to kind of like move some of our organizations to the change is going to be really burdensome. And I think that I'm thinking about what does it look like to support my team and myself as we carry this emotional labor, because it does take a lot, as we were talking about, to kind of like move people from the shock and denial to acceptance.
Yeah, really well said. Emotional labor could be the alternate title for this workshop. This is real work to help people through this, and it doesn't have to just be you. It's really worth figuring out who you can delegate and get on board with this. I love that thought. Yeah, get a thought over here.
We were just talking about the importance of self-awareness as a leader, about where you are on the curve, as you're leading other people, because when it happens to all or your team, they're looking for you for that self-awareness. So what was that?
I love that. Yeah, leadership by example is critical here. If they're seeing you demonstrate really out-of-pocket behaviors in stage 2 and 3, of course they're going to follow suit. Yeah, it's just natural. Really good point. What else? Yeah, get a thought over here.
I was telling the table that I'm the person that has a meeting with everyone and says, this is an exciting change that's coming. And I'm not necessarily gracious about the people in the room that are going to need to go through those stages 1 through 3. And so I think that was great advice, just to maybe, for me to really think about, okay, how do I maybe put this information in front of people and give them a little bit of time on their own to process, or something like that. But
I think that's a great point. Like we're friends, but you as a messenger might be great for some and not for others. Having the same messaging points of what's in it for me and why we're doing this change in written form, in video form, in FAQ form, in talking points to your managers, so that the same message is translated in essentially 10 different languages for those 10 different types of learners or styles. Great observation. Love that. What else? Yeah, the thought over here.
So we just went through a huge change in acquisition, $5 billion acquisition that happened. It signed, I think it was like January 7th and closed February 18th. Unheard of. And so we were the ones being acquired. And I think just listening and talking to one of my coworkers, it's such an individual experience. Everybody goes through it so individually. And you just want to take everybody and kind of put them in a pod together. But I think as I reflected back and asked Harm questions, hearing that feedback of what could have been done different to help somebody go through it is just such great nuggets to look forward, because we're going to go through more. We're going to probably acquire somebody else, or something else is going to happen. So how do you blend that into what you do in the future? Yeah. Thank you to my table. They were great.
Love that. And again, you are going to learn so much from those conversations. And this is one of those skills that I guarantee you will be useful for the rest of your career. 100%. It has been for the last 100 years. Yeah.
So we had a question about whether the messaging strategy changes. My example is an easy one where when introducing a CRM, some people are hesitant to use it, but then others had sweeping, significant structural changes. So it may be difficult to segment that and control the messaging and the rumor mill.
Yeah, I mean, there's CRM changes. Who's gone through a CRM change? Ever, yeah. It is such a gnarly beast. I think there's a couple of thoughts I would have on that messaging, right? Just like translating a big picture, what's in it for me talking points into different formats is helpful. Sometimes speaking to different, and I'll use a new term, adopter personas is really helpful. So we talk like early adopters versus the folks at the very end who are the ones who lag behind. You see that big curve of different, how your population follows a normal distribution of people who love change and people who despise it. For the people on the left side who like it, appealing to the fact that this is new and innovative is usually a better message, how to make your job do better. For folks on the kind of lagging side, what's actually a better type of messaging is how this new opportunity or software is really just a reinvention of what they've already been doing. It's kind of just flipping the change message on its head, appealing to the new because that's exciting, or appealing to what's already in existence because that's a little more like lowercase c conservative, and that will appeal to make it safer for those folks. So there's different messages, kind of tweaks you can pull on it. How do you talk more about that? This is a great challenge. Other questions, thoughts? What's clearer to you now, having thought about the emotions of change with this tool? I'll just yell that one out. How much time it takes? Did anyone else have that realization either today or recently? This is effort. That x-axis for a small change could be 2 weeks. It could be 6 months. Getting each incremental step forward is almost like a whole other job for people. Call it emotional labor, call it the job of a change consultant. I've done that job. Right? For a year before starting to train business. It's work. You gotta be patient. You gotta put that effort in. 100%. Any questions before we leave? And obviously, come find me afterwards. I'll post up here if you have questions. And you'll get my info as well. Anything else before we leave? Yes, I see a hand right there. You can get a mic to you.
Yeah, I have a question. When you're looking at problem-solving stages, my specific scenario is related to personnel, and specifically a CEO leaving the company. So before you kind of get that new CEO into the company where there would be more problem-solving, how do you get people and systems to the problem-solving when you're just kind of in that period of unknown to want to help them move in the curve?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So in that moment where you don't actually have a clear direction of who this person is, I think the simplest thing is to treat it like its own change management project, right? Don't lump both this moment of unknown in with whatever's going to have to happen when the new CEO comes on board, because time limiting this is really helpful. So if you say, hey, we've got 2 months, 3 months at max without this executive leadership, how do we get through just that amount of time? What is the opportunity here, right? What's in it for you for this moment right now? Because the why is obvious, right? So what can you do in 3 months to get yourself set up for when this new person comes on board? So breaking it into phases is another way to think of that. It's just much easier to get our arms around because it feels so much better. Love that question. All right, we're at time. So I want to do 2 things. First of all, this is your last opportunity to take photos of me. Not fun. Get it while you can. But in reality, I just want to recap. This is what we came to talk about. So if you do want to take a photo of one thing, I highly encourage you to take a photo of this. Secondly, I'm going to put a QR code up in a second that'll be all of the slides, as well as a little bit of a feedback form. Really helpful for me to know what you liked about this, or what could be different, or what kind of questions you have. It's also a way to download the slides. And third, come find me. I love talking about this stuff. I teach this workshop in all sorts of different shapes and forms, so if this is something you're thinking about, let's chat. I have plenty of free resources I can send you. Love to work with you. And also, a quick pitch. I'm going to be in this room at 2 p.m. talking about storytelling. Totally other concepts of how you can use story to influence and motivate as an HR leader. So please come back if you like what we had to do today. This is that QR code. go ahead and download the slides. And thank you so much for sticking around and working. This is great work. So give yourselves a round of applause for digging into this stuff.